I want to ask you something. And not like a motivational question or what is your why type of question. I feel like that's too basic for where we're at right now. I want something more honest, okay? So let me ask you, have you ever seriously wondered if you were actually emotionally intelligent? And I don't mean in a I'm totally a good person type of way. No, I mean in a do I actually understand my own mind and emotions? Because the honest truth is most people don't even think about this, okay? Um this is probably the first time you even heard emotional intelligence. Because no one really likes to dig into their emotions because well, emotions are messy, uncontrollable, and most of the time embarrassing to have. So some people just prefer to turn it off, you know? But the reality is, if you do not learn to understand and control your emotions, it will inevitably end up running your life and you're going to pass it off as fate. That's it, period. Now, I am not talking from an expert point of view. I am no expert. I am not a therapist. I do not major in psychology or anything. My name is Marsha, and I'm just someone who used to think that emotions were simply a weakness until it inevitably broke me. Now, with that said, I want you to do something for me really quick, okay? I want you to close your eyes for a second. This is not because I'm going to do something weird or do some meditational stuff on you, some manifestation voodoo. No. I just want us to have a honest moment, okay? I want us to have a little honest moment. So, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and clear your mind. Now, I want you to raise your hand if in the last week you thought about whether you were emotionally intelligent. Now, keeping your eyes closed, I want you to raise your hand if you would honestly say, yes, I am totally emotionally intelligent. And now I want you to raise your hand if you have ever actively worked on your emotional skills. Okay, now you can open your eyes. Now I want to thank you for being honest because for the ones that were honest and for the ones who participated. Because most people would honestly lie about this because and it's not because they are bad people, no, it's simply because admitting emotional weakness feels like admitting defeat and failure. Okay, it's a blow to our ego. And now that we're having this honest moment, I have to be honest. For me, emotional intelligence is not my natural strength, okay? If I'm being real, I honestly used to make decisions purely based on logic, okay? I didn't even think emotions mattered. And, if the people who used to know me saw me talking about this, they're probably gonna laugh, okay? Because I honestly used to be the kind of person who would say, feelings are stupid. Just think logically, okay? People are just too emotional. And then a few years ago, I crashed out. All the feelings came pouring out, and I didn't know what to do with it. Because out of nowhere, suddenly my emotions weren't quiet anymore. And they didn't just show up. Now they flooded in. Okay, it was like a tsunami. Okay, I would randomly go to the bathroom or go cry in a corner at random times of the day. In the middle of the day, middle of the night, somewhere in the morning when I wake up. I wouldn't say it's that often, like to save my ego a little. It's just like every now and then. But point is, I couldn't stop it, okay? And I realized after a while, that it wasn't because I was stressed. Yes, I was stressed, but that wasn't what it really was. That was just part of I was just emotionally untrained. Okay. I have been avoiding my emotions, and then when it came shoving itself in my face, I didn't know what to do with it. And so I let it run like a dam. Now, most people, when they hear emotional intelligence, they think, oh, it means, people who are sensitive, people who are emotional. No, and yes, but that's not really what it means, okay? What it really means is just simply understanding your emotions, okay? It means being able to identifying them, being able to name them, and being able to manage them. Not feelings, okay? It's a skill, okay? And there are three parts to this skill, okay? Three parts to this skill. Emotional awareness, as in like knowing what you feel, knowing what others feel, and empathy towards yourself and to others. Number two, using emotions to solve your problems or any problem, you know, and that is by not being controlled by emotions and by using them as data instead. Number three, lastly, is managing emotions, being able to regulate your own, being able to calm others, and being able to know what to do or say to support someone. So, the emotionally loud person, not automatically emotionally intelligent. They might just be emotional, but not emotionally intelligent. And emotion without control is basically a fire without a stove, just very destructive to a person. So, a simple backstory: I grew up in a family where emotions were not valued. I'm not saying I'm not saying I grew up in an abusive environment or family. No, um, we were more of a like tough it up type of family. So, if I cried, I was simply told, "Don't be a crybaby. You're better than this. You're stronger than this. Stop being dramatic. You can do this. Just be strong." And honestly, it sounds like motivational stuff, okay? And maybe it was, it kind of is, but it did had its negative effects. And one of those was the fact that I started to slowly learn how to bury everything. And because I never learned how to process the emotions, I simply turned them into aggression. Okay. The loneliness became anger. Fear became control. Rejection became some bitterness. And at some point, I started thinking, maybe I was broken. There was something wrong with me. I had a screw loose or something. That wasn't it. Okay. I was just simply emotionally untrained. And the truth is, I'm not the only one. Okay, a lot of people are emotionally untrained. And that is the reason why people bully. That is the reason why toxic relationships exist. That is why, workplaces are filled with conflict. And it's simply because people don't know themselves, and they don't know others either. And they don't know how to handle emotions, like handle emotional reality. And so the most common thing that people do when they don't know how to handle stuff is they project. They project their pain onto others, okay? They project, they react, they fight, they hurt, and then they call it normal. Okay, it's just like normal reaction. But let's talk about the real reason that emotional intelligence is very crucial. It's crucial because it's not just about being nice, okay? about power, okay? Emotional intelligence means that you can make better decisions because you know where your emotions come from. It means you can communicate clearly with others because you know how to express yourself without attacking anyone. It means that you can handle conflict because you know you stay calm while others are losing it. It means you can lead as a leader because you can read people and understand what they need. And if you think, these are just soft skills, you're really missing the point because this is the foundation of how humans operate. We don't really learn or teach emotional intelligence in school, okay? Yeah, sure, we learn math, we science, history, and kids are taught to be good. But we don't teach them to understand themselves, okay? We are not taught to understand ourselves either. Kids today are basically overloaded with activities, sports, music, school, languages, but no one really teaches them how do you feel? Why do you feel that? Why does what does your emotion mean? So we raise a generation of high achievers who don't really know themselves. And then we wonder why society is so angry. It is simply because emotional intelligence is not a luxury. It's a survival skill. Here's the thing, okay? Emotional intelligence is a skill. So it follows the same path as any other skill. At first, you're unaware of what you do not know, and then you become aware, and then you practice, and then it becomes automatic, and then it becomes like driving a car. And then at first, you think about every single step, and then one day, you realize that you are doing it without even with your eyes closed. That is emotional intelligence. But to get there, you have to go through the uncomfortable part, acknowledging these emotions. Your first step is simple. You have to recognize your emotions as valuable, as data, not as a weakness, not as something that has to be cut out of your life. Emotions are data, as I said. Someone named Antonio did research on people who had damaged the emotional part of their brains, and they struggled to make rational decisions. That means emotions aren't really the enemy, okay? They are part of the system. They exist for a reason. So the first step is stop lying to yourself and ask people genuinely how they feel. And when they ask you, honest, answer honestly. Not I'm fine with a fake smile. Say I feel overwhelmed. I feel unappreciated. I feel scared, And I don't mean in like a complaining way. I just mean like say the truth. Okay? That is the first step. Next, you need to learn to name emotions properly, okay? Because most people don't, okay? They substitute one emotion for another, okay? They say they're angry, but actually they are hurt. I've been through this. They say they're annoyed when they're actually lonely. And then they also respond incorrectly, okay? You have to really go down to the core and ask, why am I feeling this way? Why am I angry? Why am I hurt? Why am I annoyed? Why do I feel lonely? Forget about what you think you should feel. Ask why you are feeling this way. Number 3, this is the part that nobody wants to do, okay? Because society teaches you that emotions are weak. But I want you to know that emotions are not good nor bad, okay? They just are, okay? Sadness does not equal failure. It's just a signal for something, okay? Grief is not a weakness. It's love that basically refuses to disappear. Anger is not evil. N- These emotions, do not define a person. Some of them are just boundaries that are saying, stop, this is not okay. When you accept emotions, you stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, you stop projecting your pain onto others. Number four, for me, the way that I process emotions is through writing, okay? Writing it down, pouring the ink onto paper. And I don't mean like writing into my phone, no, like writing on paper. And not every day. I tried every day, but like I can't really keep up with every day. Every now and then, maybe like once a week, once or twice a week. But when something really hits me, I write it down because writing creates a distance. It allows you to observe the situation from outside of it. It turns a storm inside your head into something that you can see, and that gives you control of it. There's research on this, I swear. Penny Baker and Smith wrote a whole book about the benefits of writing your emotions down, and it's real. So if you want to level up your emotional intelligence, write, and not on your phone, on paper. Okay, write on paper. Get a notebook. Okay, get a notebook and write on it. Not every day, but like at least once a week or whenever anything just hits. Step number five, reflect. Because emotions don't just appear out of nowhere, okay? They come from something, they come from somewhere. A trigger, a memory, a belief. So ask, you know, why am I feeling this way? Like, what does this emotion come from? What triggered it? Because sometimes the answer is simple. Yes, sometimes it may be messy, but reflection gives you power. Because then the answer stops running from you. Number six, then comes the real work, handling the emotions. Okay, for yourself, this is for yourself, what you should do. Try meditating. Maybe not every day, but every now and then. Do it as something like a cleansing, exercising, therapy, talking to your friends, talking to family members, talking to someone, reading, creating, whatever works for you, okay? Wherever you can find your peace in. And for others, you learn to support them. You learn to ask, how can I help you? What do you need help with right now? What do you need right now? Because honestly, emotional intelligent people do not try to fix others, okay? They help others become better at managing themselves, an emotionally intelligent person doesn't try to control anyone or fix anyone. And here's the part that matters, okay? Emotional intelligence isn't soft. It is not nice. It is not something spiritual, okay? It's power, as I've said, okay? If you can understand yourself, you can control your decisions. And if you can understand others, you can communicate with them. And if you can regulate your emotions, you can lead. Maybe not lead anyone or anything, but like at least lead your life. And if you can lead your emotions, you can change the world. At least your world and the world and the world of those around you. And with that said, I want you to imagine this, okay? A world where everyone is emotionally intelligent. What would change? What would happen if your boss understood like the emotions of everyone? Wouldn't that be great? What would happen if your parents did? What would happen if you could understand your kids' emotions? What would happen, like, what if if relationships weren't just a battlefield? What if conflict didn't turn into destruction? What if we had a world of mutual understanding, tolerance, and connection? And honestly, that's not just a fantasy, okay? It's a possibility. And it starts with you, okay? It starts with one person. It starts with you being honest, with you admitting that you don't you under like I don't understand myself yet, and then doing the work, because emotional intelligence is a skill. Okay, you have to understand, and skills are built. It's not inherited through some genes or anything like that. No, it's not given. It's built. And if you want to be powerful, start here. Not with a side hustle, not with strategies, with emotional intelligence, with understanding yourself, because it is the hidden skill that decides everything. And if you're still here watching this, feeling something, that means you're already on the right path. You just have to keep going.